now call the special meeting of June 9th, 2022. If we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Douglas,
Here.
Ms. Hayes, reported absent. Mr. Holcraft,
Here.
Ms. Sensi.
Here.
Mrs. Sensi, sorry.
No problem.
Mr. Thompson.
Here. Next motion is a motion to appoint one of the board members to be a treasurer pro temp. This is so we have someone who can sign off as the board member on treasurer reports. So we have a motion to appoint Jeff Thompson as treasurer pro temp.
I'll
Town
move.
board.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi,
Yes,
Mr. Thompson.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi,
Yes,
Mr. Thompson.
Yes. We had no one registered for public participation today, so we'll move on to board member reports. Are any board members wishing to give a report? All right. You want to talk about the MEA agreement?
Up is the MEA agreement ratification. We're looking for your approval tonight to ratify the contract that we entered into a tentative agreement with the MEA for another year. We had the elimination of a major health plan, Plan 2, and a 3% raise on the base and some other items of language that cleaned up the contract.
Motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We appreciate the relationship with the MEA, working well together with our administration, so we have a good contract here that's fair for both sides. So just want to extend our appreciation to the MEA.
I appreciate their ability to negotiate and work together, and look forward to another good year next year.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Abstain.
Mrs. Sensi,
Yes,
Mr. Thompson.
Yes. Reports and recommendations of the treasurer.
As the financial statements for the month of May are presented, there are no fund-to-fund transfers this month, and the check payment register is included, as well as a request to ratify the Madison Public Library Board of Trustees approved tax budget and authorize filing with the Lake County Auditor. And that's just
Two separate motions.
All right, so could we have a motion for the first one?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi,
Yes,
Mr. Thompson.
Yes. We have a motion on the tax budget for the library.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
We do have a library rep here this evening.
Would you like to explain a little bit about what this is? I know it's brief.
Yes, it's pretty brief. As the school board is our taxing authority, we come to you guys annually to have you approve our tax budget to submit to the auditor's office.
Roll call?
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi,
Yes,
Mr. Thompson.
Yes. Reports to the administrative team?
Yes, I have a couple things this evening. Our administrators gathered this week to review the year and sort of plan for next year. And we had an excellent speaker yesterday from the Ohio Department of Education who met with us on attendance and looking at attendance data. And how we can make gains with our students just through improved attendance. And as a team, we set through a whole action plan of things that we're going to implement next year so that, attendance will be a major focus, because we all know if you're not in school, you can't learn. That's the best way to get the content that the teachers are teaching, and being in school on a consistent basis makes all the difference. And especially now with all the kindergarten, we all have students missing day after day. And it is true, there are a lot of absences in kindergarten because some kids are coming to school for the first time, and all the germs and those types of things that go around, which was one of the pieces of data that he did share with us. Kindergarten is one of the highest grades. But now that we're, hopefully on the other side of the pandemic a little bit, really focusing on that regular routine of school and getting kids here every day. We will be getting another set of data next week on the ELA test scores, and we'll start to dive in on reviewing what our test scores from this year are in the next couple of weeks. Dave, you have anything to add?
Just the consistent approach to attendance is going to really set clear expectations and messaging for the whole district, so that a parent that has a student that's in the elementary level and a student in middle school, they're going to be hearing the same thing. The forms are going to be the same. The communication is going to be very similar. And it's going to be coming in more of a, how can we support you? How can we help you? Let's work together to ensure your kids have success in school, as opposed to get to school or this will happen.
Yeah, right.
Have we had issues in the past? I mean, missing a lot of kids missing and stuff. Where are we pretty much average for most schools?
Yeah, we for many years we're at that 93% rate. I think that the past couple of years with the pandemic and the messages of kids staying home if you're sick, that sort of has raised some of those attendance bars. But we've got kids that the parents just don't get them to school, and then they've missed a whole day. We're trying to get creative with ideas of how we can get these kids to school.
Another challenge with, when you look at the data, the student who comes 45 minutes late every day but is there every day, each of those periods, they start to add up. And so at the end of the year, the parent says, but I had them there every day, but they missed an hour of each day. And over the course of a year, that adds up, and they could fall into the category of chronically truant, which is something we want to avoid.
So pre-pandemic, testing was already difficult enough because the tests changed every couple of years, and it was difficult to even determine what we were measuring. So now when we are in this look back period of a couple of years here, where the governor sent us home, signed a form, the next day we were remote. It was that quickly. And then back, and then, all these changes. How have they adjusted the testing? I don't even know how the testing could possibly be valid coming out. I mean, maybe 2 years from now would be, but I don't know how it is now. I mean, how are they accommodating for all these changes with testing?
They've got a new report card system coming out, but I haven't even had time to read what that's going to look like. So there's more to come on how all of that's going to look in the fall.
So a new form of measure.
Yeah, new form of measure. They've gotten away from the letter grade, and I can't even remember what they changed it to.
It seems like in all of the sessions that I've sat in from the Department of Education, there's always that caveat that look at the last 2 years sort of with a grain of salt, because those numbers are going to look very different than the years prior to that. In fact, in our presentation yesterday, the gentleman from the Ohio Department of Ed said we're looking at the 18-19 school year as our baseline data and not even thinking about the previous 2 years in terms of attendance. Because, for a while there, the marching orders were 10-day quarantine.
Right?
Right there.
No matter what, right? There's 10 days right there.
Yeah,
And
you're at
even
5% of the school year almost.
And even if students zoomed in, as in some students did, and, last year especially, they weren't getting what they needed.
They were there, but they weren't there.
Everybody has, I think, come to the conclusion that brick and mortar schools are the best place for students to learn.
And one last point in terms of testing. Testing was offered, but families that had their students stay home and do the online had the choice of having their students come in and test or not, because we could not take the test to them. It would invalidate the test. So for them to test, they would have had to come into the schools, which they weren't willing to do, during the school year. So we did not have a full set of test data either.
Ready for recommendations? All right, we're asking on the personnel motion for the board to accept the following resignations. The resignation of Susan Church, Special Education Needs Assistant at North Elementary School, effective June 30th, 2022. To accept with regret the retirement resignation of Tammy Whitley, Library Assistant at South Elementary School, effective August 1st, 2022. To accept the resignation of William Mary, North Elementary School Principal, effective July 31st, 2022. To accept the resignation of Michelle Sell, Nutrition Services Assistant Manager at Madison High School, effective June 8th, 2022. We're asking you to approve the following employment contracts to each of the following substitute teachers by Educational Service Center of the Western Reserve under Madison Local School District Superintendent under a one-year limited teacher contract for the 2021-22 school year. Taylor Kolar, Brittany Merkley. Following persons each as a casual day-to-day substitute for the 2021-22 school year. Darlene Mahaley. To employ Courtney Schuster as an intervention specialist, autism teacher at North Elementary School under a one-year limited contract effective the 2022-23 school year. To employ Nathaniel Toth under a one-year limited contract as a bus mechanic effective June 13th. And to approve the following transfer: Nicole Shimko from a 3 3/4 hour nutrition services cashier position at South Elementary to nutrition services assistant manager for 7 hours per day at South Elementary, effective August 16th, 2022.
I'll move.
A second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
And this is the second reading and adoption of the board policies, beginning with staff and dress grooming and ending with food services. And there were no changes made between the first and second reading.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Horvath,
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
And on the consent calendar this evening, we have several items to approve contract between Madison Local School District and school consultants for communication services for the 2022-23 school year, effective August 1st. To approve a contract between Educational Alternatives and Madison Local Schools to provide educational and related services for students served outside our district for the 2022-23 school year. To approve summer sports camps for summer 22 is found on file in the board office. To approve Madison High School girls soccer camp at Kent State University, July 16th and 17th at no cost to the athletes. To approve Madison High School boys soccer camp at Edinburgh University at a cost of $425 per athlete. To approve the contract between Re-Ed Services and Madison Local Schools to provide ESY services for the 2021-22 school year. to approve the contract between Mentor Exempted Village Schools Cares and Madison Local Schools to provide ESY services for the 2021-22 school year, to approve the contracts between Re-Ed Services and the Madison Local Schools for education, therapy, transportation, and support for students served outside the Madison Local School District for the 2022-23 school year, and to enter into an agreement between Michael Vaccarello and the Madison Local Schools to provide year-end fiscal support as found on file in the office.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I just want to point out on the contract with Michael Vaccarello, who's our former treasurer. Mike resigned not long ago. We entered into an agreement with the Educational Services Center of the Western Reserve for an interim treasurer. That is Greg Slemons. Unfortunately, as things just have gone, Greg has needed to have a short-term leave of absence, and so we've entered into a very short-term agreement here with Mike to help us close our books out on the year that he was primarily responsible for. That's why we're having a short-term agreement with him, and that'll help us button things up. And then we hope in the next week to 2 weeks to be coming forward with a motion to hire a new treasurer. So we hope that that will resolve that. Just wanted to explain it because it's a little bit confusing, I think, even for us, as to how it all happened in that order, but it just did, so. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Horvath?
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
All right, do we have a motion to move into executive session for the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employees or regulated individuals?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Mr. Horvath?
Yes.
Mrs. Sensi?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes. We stand in recess. We will have an executive session. We will not be taking any action when we return other than to adjourn the meeting.